You've probably heard it said that you should never burn your bridges because you never know when you might have to go back across. You probably also heard it said that sometimes you have to burn your bridges so that the crazy you-know-whos can't chase you down and get back a hold of you. Who's right? Well, you know what they say, with every story there's two sides. Yeah, that was going to look so good, wasn't it? But I forgot where I put my 50-cent piece. You know what they say, every coin has two sides. Well, you know what Crazy Lake here at Homesteading Off the Grid says, every coin really has three sides because they forget about the one around the side, which is the edge. Here's the thing about burning bridges. And here's Cleopatra. Hello, girl. You want to go for a walk? You want to go for a walk? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and another morning ramble. As of this recording right now, it is September 22, 2018, and it is officially the first day of fall. Roger's happy to hear it. He's down there making those noises that the roosters make. Look at this. I've got to show you this before we get into the bridges and burning them to the ground. Isn't this gorgeous? Now, guys, you have got to make sure to watch every morning going forward over the next 2 months because this place becomes a Norman Rockwell painting. And we can sit up here together and watch it unfold. Yes, my favorite time of year and what I missed most when I lived in the Philippines. Well, I mean, it's in the top 1,000. I missed a lot of things, but I missed fall. So, oh, it's beautiful. Okay, burning bridges. Let's get into it, Crazy Lake. I got things to do today. It's first day of fall. I'm so excited. I waited to come out when the sun was up so I could show you the sunrise here on the first official day of fall for 2018. I didn't go hide in the woodshed from the coyotes and the bear and the gray squirrels. Of course, those gray squirrels are coming out now. I got to watch it. All right. I had the perfect introduction plan. That was going to look like I was like professional or something, but I forgot which pocket I put my 50-cent piece in. Wow, this 50-cent piece, there's something very special about this 50-cent piece. We get these at Scott Stadium, home of the UVA football team. There's a popcorn stand. You know how everything's overpriced there at the popcorn stand, well, everywhere inside those stadiums. I think a big old bucket of popcorn is like $99.50. So you give them a $100 bill and they give you a 50-cent piece back in change. Now that's an exaggeration. I think it's really like $5 or $4.50, and so you give them $5 and then they give you this back, and these just kind of pile up. But we might go there today. There's a home game. The Cavaliers are playing the University of Louisville Cardinals. We may or may not go. We haven't decided yet. But we'll let you know if we go. We'll update you on that afterward. Anyway, so many people say don't burn your bridges. You never know when you might have to go back across. You know what that... Now, that there's so... I'm going to use my case, my example, and I'm going to tell you about the bridges you don't see. This is the thing about bridges and burning bridges, and so many people don't see this. All right, let's take, for example, the New River Gorge Bridge. It's the world's second largest arch bridge, I think. It used to be the longest, but then they built one in China that was bigger or something like that. I don't know. When I was a kid growing up in West by God, Virginia, it was the world's longest arch bridge. So you go across that bridge, and I forget how long it was. People, they have Bridge Day in October that's coming up. I don't know, maybe it's today. Maybe they have it on the first day of fall. I'm not sure. But people bungee jump off of it. They base jump off of it. Big festival. So when we hear the phrase, don't burn your bridges, you never know when you might have to go back across, we envision a bridge like the New River Gorge, that if we burn it, we're screwed because, I mean, it took them years to build this bridge. People died building this bridge. So we better not burn it down because we might have to go back across. Well, sometimes bridges need to be burned. I mean, and if you're, okay, let's think about like toxic relationships, be it interpersonal relationships or a work environment. And in my case here recently, it was kind of a work environment. You know, at the post office, if you've been following for a while, you know about that, about the abuses going on there, lying to the customers, not delivering their mail for weeks at a time, people in management telling people above them that the mail was being delivered, people being ordered by the people in charge there to scan packages as if they either had been delivered or as if when they hadn't been, or as if they couldn't be delivered because there was some, rabid pit bull in heat blocking the mailbox, so it was no access, when indeed there was never even an attempt made. All this stuff going on. So I told about that in this video, which if you haven't seen, you should watch. I'll link it to the end of this one. It's called Why I Finally Quit My Job at the Post Office and Why You Don't Receive Your Amazon Packages on Time. According to the comments in that video, I guess this is going on around the nation with this whole fraudulent scanning thing. But anyway, so I put that out there after I left. Just you folks were very supportive. You were saying, quit that job, get out of there. And when I finally could, I could. And so I made that video to kind of explain what was going on. And there's the sun. This is gorgeous. Look at this. Look at that. It looks like a big, beautiful ball of fire coming up over the trees. Did you guys watch the video we uploaded late last night about our hike at Observatory Hill up there on the campus of UVA? It's making me think of it. My son and I do this thing with the camera where he stands to where the sun is right on top of his head and we act like his hair's on fire. And I go, oh, your hair's on fire. And then oh, it's out. Oh, it's back. You got to watch that. So anyway, people who succumb to the intimidation and the fear factor blasted me after that video. They said, I can't believe you're exposing your former employer. And that's the post office. You know how big they are? They'll kill you. And we were getting, well, there were threats made. I'm not going to say from who, but they were reported, and I have reason to believe there's certain people who are no longer in positions to make threats. That video originally started out as a video about bullying, which it addresses that too, because that's what was going on there. And I was talking about how, I stood up to my bullies to show my son that's how we do it. And people said, oh, wow, you quit your job. How is that standing up? Well, FYI, 48 hours after that video was uploaded, the person in charge of the post office in Charlottesville was no longer in charge of the post office in Charlottesville. And that person's supervisor, who was in charge of nearly 200 post offices, was no longer in charge of nearly 200 post offices. You can say a lot without coming out and saying it. All right, now, bridges. They were like, oh, you're going to need them someday. Well, now, as you know, if you've been following the channel, a couple of days ago, I shared how I never got my last paycheck. And people commented, and I agree with you, that wasn't by accident. Certain people made sure that check disappeared or whatever, so on and so forth. And some people probably took it a bit farther in their minds and said, ha, 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 you burnt that bridge. Now, look, you got to go back across it. So let's say we burn the New River Gorge to the ground, so we can no longer cross the New River, right? Let me tell you something about bridges, people. If you were to go stand on that New River Gorge before you burn it to the ground, and if you took a pair of binoculars and you looked down into the gorge, way down there at the New River, the world's second oldest river, the oldest being the Nile, and the New River is only one of two rivers that flow in North America that flow from south to north. The other is the Red River in Colorado, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of history with that river. A lot of very big smallmouth bass in that river also, FYI, if you're a fisherman or fisherwoman or fisher person. But if you were to go on that bridge and you look down into the gorge there, you would notice all kinds of smaller bridges crossing the New River. That New River Gorge Bridge wasn't built until I think the 70s or the 60s. I remember stories from folks a generation above me growing up talking about how they had to drive down into the gorge and wind their way around those mountain passes and cross the little bridges down there that cross the New River and then go up the other side. And basically how that bridge saved them like 30 to 40 minutes, or maybe 20, I don't know, maybe 8. The stories get bigger. The fish of the stories get bigger. I mean, if you don't have it on video, like that giant bass we caught by the one that ate the bluegill that we caught on the hook, you remember that video? If you didn't, go back and watch it. It's in the playlist about animals, wild animals, livestock, all that, fishing. Those are just the stories you don't believe unless you're there to see them or you capture them on camera. But those small little tiny bridges are still there. That's the third side of this coin. So 2 days ago, I make this video about how I didn't get my last paycheck. All kinds of weird stuff happened. Let me tell you, Dearly and I, after that, we went hiking there at Sugar Hollow Reservoir, where we got attacked by that vicious gray squirrel that just threw hickory nuts at us until we left the forest. And we're having lunch at Wyant's store up there in Whitehall. This is the oldest continuously single-family owned general store in America. The same family's owned the store since the 1880s. So we're sitting there eating. They have a little like short order cook bar place there, and the door opens and I hear somebody say, "Hey Kevin," and I look over and there's my old buddy Leon. So Leon, I know you're watching. Here's your shout out. What's up, Leon? Leon and I worked together at the post office for a while. He was a rural carrier, I was a city carrier, both, assistants. So he comes in, he sits down, we haven't seen each other in four months, maybe 5 months. So he comes in, pulls up a chair, sits down there, looks over at my wife, says, "Hey, Dearly," they've never met. And he's sitting there and he starts talking. He goes, "And you know what? When you said this, talking about something I said about the post office," and I'm like, "Leon, I haven't seen you in 4 months, man. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you said it in the ramble this morning," and blah, blah, blah. And he's going on. And I'm like, you watch my channel?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been watching it for a long time. I never miss an episode." But then he goes on about this story about the post office. And it's like we just picked up this conversation like we're in the middle of a conversation, like we had just been having it 5 minutes ago and we never stopped. That was really neat. What's up, Leon? Yeah, we're going to come out there and get out to the farm at some point. Not anytime real soon, because we're still super busy playing catch up with life after having left the post office and some other things going on, but we are going to get out there. Thank you for the invite. So anyway, me and Dearly were coming home like, that's weird. I wonder how many people's watching our channel that we just have no clue about. So last night, we're going through the comments, looking at the comments after we uploaded the video from yesterday's hike. And then here's somebody with an initial and a last name commenting saying, "Hey Kevin, I saw your video the other day about your paycheck. FYI, I tracked it down. I have your paycheck. Get in touch with me." And I'm like, who is this person? Because it was like the initial and then the last name. And as soon as I said I would, if I knew who you are, I was like, I know who that is. It's a wonderful lady who was like a big sister to me at that post office, who's been there over 30 years. I'm going to say her name anyway, Karen. I hope she doesn't mind me outing her. Karen got my paycheck for me once she saw it. She tracked it down. She used to be the president of the union. She still pulls as much weight as if she were the president of the union. By golly, she found my paycheck, and she let me know she has it. And Karen has made arrangements with some other mail carriers who live right up the road from me. What's up, Phil and Debbie? Debbie, I emailed you about this morning, but I know you're probably watching. Karen's going to give Debbie my paycheck, and she's bringing it to my house. Probably within the next, if they're all working today, probably today. Guys, here's the thing about burning bridges. There are more bridges out there than you realize crossing the same river. Okay, the big old monstrous U.S.P.S. who I burned that New River Gorge with because I exposed them for their, we'll use the word alleged here because there's a lot of lawyers in the world, alleged fraudulent scams of telling people they couldn't deliver their Amazon package because there was just no access to their property, when the truth is they're so severely understaffed that package and that carrier never had time to make it out to that property. So I burned that bridge by being honest about it and standing up to bullies who were treating me like bullies. And so whatever, guys, if the New River Gorge goes down, it's not like people aren't going to be able to get across the New River, because there are dozens of bridges underneath that bridge down there close to the river. And these aren't the little people. Okay, don't make that connection in your mind. Don't put those words in my mouth, because that's not what I'm saying. You know, when I left the post office, a guy named John, city carrier's assistant, been there about 2 months by the time I left. He came up and he said, "Hey, don't forget about us little people." I said, "John, there's no such thing as little people, and if you think there is, then you're right, and you're the little person." And he told me that was deep, and I told him, "John, yeah, that's kind of deep, but 6 months ago I didn't think that way, and I think that's part of the reason I ended up being at the post office, because I needed to be knocked off of the horse I was standing up a little too tall on." And let me tell you, I learned those are the hardest working people I've met in my life. Them and soldiers, that's a hard job. And those folks are working 7 days a week, 6 days a week at the least, 12-hour days. And so anyway, Karen is a good person. Debbie and Phil are good people. Leon's a good people. These are all good people. And I know that they would do for me what they're doing for me if I hadn't made that video, if they knew about this situation with my last paycheck being accidentally misplaced, or maybe not so accidentally misplaced, because they're good people and that's what good people do. But I can't help but think just a little bit that maybe because we burnt the big bridge by exposing the abuse, the fraud, the lies that has gone on for a long time, and at least getting a little bit of a reprieve. Now again, the post office doesn't fire those people, they just transfer them out to a different place, smack them on the wrist with a wet spaghetti noodle, and those people will probably be nice to other people for 60 to 90 days, but then they'll get back to their abusive leadership styles, and they'll do this for 30 years, and once they've obtained 30 years plus the age of 55, I think, and they qualify for their full pension, they'll retire and they'll get all their full pension, their full benefits. So did I get anybody removed from employment? No, just me for quitting. But did I make a lot of people aware about the abuses that were going on to some of the best, hardest working people that I've ever met and had the honor of working with for a short 6-month period of my life? Yeah, we brought that to the surface. And I'm still getting that last paycheck they tried for me not to get, because this coin has a third side. And Karen and Phil and Debbie and the Leons and these folks, that's that third side. So sometimes, folks, I've always been of the belief system that sometimes you got to burn bridges so that the crazy you-know-whats can't chase you down and grab you and drag you back into the village. You know, hey, a lot of you might thinking that I'm the village idiot that escaped. Well, you know, also remember that in the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king. The man with two eyes is completely insane. Sometimes you've got to escape the insanity, and you got to burn that bridge so you're not dragged back into it. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, Phil and or Debbie, whoever brings it by. Leon, it was great seeing you again. Big shout out to everybody I used to work with. And I'm going to get out here and start enjoying some fall stuff, because this is my favorite time of year. This is one of the things I missed most when I lived in the Philippines all those years. And it was summer every day of the year. That was awesome for about 2 years, but after that I miss fall. So if you're watching this on the day it's recorded, go out there and enjoy your fall. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you for more next time here at Homesteading Off the Grid.